called Korean Natural Farming. I'm a level 2 instructor on it.
Right.
And this is kind of the core of the whole entire system. So I've been talking with Sarah. We've been trying to do this for like, I don't know, a year and a half.
All right.
So we're finally getting it together. So
All right, nice.
this is basically just a standard cedar box. They're best made out of fence boards. I like small ones like this, so I can do multiple collections, but you can make them whatever size.
The cedar wood?
Cedar is important. You cannot do it with redwood because redwood is too antifungal, but cedar is antifungal enough that this box will last you a really long time. You can make these boxes out of any untreated wood. It's totally fine to make it out of pine and fir. Just know your longevity is less and the cleanup is more. So if you can find cedar, or I would even say go find cedar because it's going to make your life easier. So the purpose of this box is to basically create a little healthy, happy home space for indigenous microorganisms. When we talk about farming, and especially field farming in places like this, we're always going to go for places that are flat and easy, which means in general you're going to be in grasslands. Grasslands have a totally different mycelial and fungal or microbial communication than trees do. And in general, they're bacterially dominant. When we're cultivating crops, almost every single crop prefers to have a fungal dominant soil. So that would be under the trees where there's no sun. So how can we kind of bring this fungal dominance into our garden soils and our farm soils? This is like the best way I have ever found. And we have found some really interesting things from doing indigenous microorganism collections. My farm, we had root aphids. And my friend is a leading entomologist for the United States, and when I sent her a picture, I'm like, dang it, I have root aphids, right? She's like, oh yeah, you're bummed. I'm like, not what I needed to hear, what do I do? At the time, Bavaria bassiana, also known as, I can't remember what the brand is, was the only kind of solution for these things. So I went to go buy some, and they wouldn't sell it to me because I didn't have an operator license number, because it's a pesticide, technically, even though it's a natural fungal thing. And so I went through this whole thing getting this pesticide applicator license. I went through the test. It took me like a week. I brought this in, and they laughed at me, and they said, all you needed to do was call the Department of Ag and tell them you needed an operator number, and they would have done it online, like, instantly. I was like, great. Well, whatever. I have everything I need now. I buy the product. I go home. And I had talked with the company that was producing this, and they said, would you be willing to run a trial for us? Get the wettable powder and the aqueous solution and see which one works best for your crop. And I went, great, no problem. So I was trying to find 12 plants, 24 ideally, but 12 would have worked to run this trial. And I kept looking at these pots and trying to find root aphids, and they were gone. And I couldn't figure out where they went. And I called my friend Suzanne, and I said, okay, root aphids don't like disappear, right? And she just laughed at me. She's like, no, what are you talking about? I'm like, I can't find them. And she's like, well, you're not looking hard enough. And I'm like, Suzanne, I am looking really hard. I cannot find them. I don't understand. And she's like, keep looking, keep looking. I'm like, okay, fine. So I then got out my like digital scope that connects to my computer and started scoping the soil and the roots, and finally figured out what I thought was little tiny chunks of perlite were little tiny root aphids covered in fungus. And I was just like, whoa. So I called Suzanne back, and I was like, dude, something eradicated these things. And this was like 2 days later, and she said, oh, it's the Bavaria bassiana. And I said, I haven't used it. It's in my fridge still. And she was like, what are you talking about? So we ended up sending these root aphid, fungal infested root aphids to both Cornell University and to this company. And they both started running trials on it. And it's kind of stuck now because it is an unknown fungal species. They got it down to the genus for sure. And then after that, they don't really know what it is, so they can't get USDA approval to create this on a massive level. Apparently it propagates very well in the fridge. It is easy to lab manufacture. It's like kind of cool. And in 8 days, it had spread and eradicated every single root aphid I had, with the exception of like 2, which were covered. Every single little hair had a little poof of white pom-pom on it. It was very cool. So that came, we kind of were backtracking. I said, well, you know, I've been using this on my farm, and in all of my soil, I use a small amount of IMO soil in all of my pots when I transplant up as well. And so we kind of backtracked a little bit and did some research on the soil, and sure enough, like, it was only in the places that I've used IMO.
So what's so special about IMOs instead of EMOs?
Well, EMO, I don't.
Well,
The EM thing is a whole different process, if that's what you mean. The
right, but it's available
EM1.
readily in the store in a bottle.
Yeah, so the EM1 is basically a very limited selection. What IMO is doing is it's taking what's naturally around you in your area, culturing it out, and basically propagating it onto substrates and making a much larger amount without doing any damage to anything. So what we do is we take the box, we fill it full of rice that is improperly cooked. So basically what we did is, and if you, I was going to say, do you guys have a spoon?
I might have it by the food table.
If you want to grab a spoon. Yeah. So the way to do the rice is, I found you kind of need a rice cooker. I tried doing this about 12 times. I started with stovetop, could not get my rice to do the right thing, got a rice cooker, still couldn't get it right. Finally went to a 5-day hands-on class and figured out what I was doing wrong. Number one, Calrose rice specifically is the best type of rice to use. You can use other rices. To start with, if you want to do this process, use white Calrose. It is just your best path to success. Once you start getting it under your belt where you have collections that are working over and over again, then you can start experimenting. But just if you want easier success, you use Calrose rice. And the trick is that when you put your rice in, you add water to about 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch over your rice. I don't measure. There are people that do, and they say, oh, it's a 1 to 1.5 or whatever. I do it by eye because I know right now it's hotter and drier, so I need to use a little bit more water. Later on in the fall, I want to use a little bit less water. Once this is done, it's going to be basically like, it's not really eating rice if we did it right, which we did. It's like raw in the middle still. So it's not good to eat.
Slight crunch?
No, not crunch, but spring. Like, we were like, I mean, I could palate this and I could put on a happy expression of somebody serving it to me and I could choke it down and be all right with it without it crunching and sounding like I'm eating cereal. But it's not really what I want to do.
Okay. Not fluffy.
It's not, but that's the thing, it kind of is. It's weird because it looks like it's cooked okay.
It's the outer
is proper,
surface
inner is not. So that's why you use less water and a rice cooker. Because I tried messing with time and I tried doing all kinds of things before I knew what I was doing to have failure after failure after failure after failure.
It's easy to fail doing this.
It's
I've
easy
also failed several times.
It is. This is
I've
the
had
hardest.
several stages.
This is the hardest part of Korean natural farming. It's also like 80% of why this method works. Everybody starts with fermented plant juice and all kinds of other things that are really easy to do, but don't really have as much efficacy because this is not an NPK solution. This is a natural farming solution. It's a whole different ideology in your head.
What was the water to rice ratio?
Yep.
What was it?
Yep. Right now,
1/4 inch and 1/2 inch over the
we did about 1/2 inch over the level of the rice today because of our environment.
ambient conditions.
Yep. But, you know, you don't really want to go much more than 1/2 inch over, and you don't want to go much less than 1/4 inch over. But you can always taste the rice, and if it's like this, and you guys can feel free to come up and if you want to actually have a experiential thing. If you plan on doing this, I do recommend you taste it because it is something that you will remember. Like,
Is
okay,
putting
that's
your
what that
hands
should
in
be
it
like.
not a no
here's the
bueno?
spoon.
Yeah,
That
don't.
doesn't really matter.
Okay, I didn't know if like
It's gonna go in the dirt.
microbes.
The human microbes
I hit the
will be
rice button.
competing.
They live with us.
Yep,
our entire life.
And then you just keep playing with it.
I figured out that
Whole
it's
universe.
easier to mess with your water level than your time.
Okay.
So, like, that's why I literally bought, I have a rice cooker that I just use for IMO now. Well, I did. My home rice cooker broke, so now I have it for both. But
Done on purpose. Plenty of
also, if you do this, the bigger, if you don't have a rice cooker to use, the bigger rice cooker you can get, the better. Because this has to be at least halfway full and ideally 3/4 full.
You telling me size matters now?
Size matters. Size matters, baby. Well, volume matters. So this box
of rice.
So this box is going to take, a decent amount of this rice. Now, when you look at the bottom, we have wide holes in this, right? So what we're trying to do is when we take this out and place it where we're going to place it, we want the rice to actually start coming down through these slots a little bit. We call it the little microbe stairway to heaven.
Nice.
And then the idea is they're going to come up into the box and start propagating in this entire box and filling it up. We have holes on the sides because we found that this is better for them as well. It adds airflow. All life needs fresh air to some extent, right? But we also don't want to leave this open because then all the bugs and things are going to get in. So once this is, if this is less than 3/4 full or less than half full, you don't have the right environment in the top area for them to be happy. So what will happen is we'll put the rice in, we're going to take a paper towel, we're going to put the paper towel on the top, we're going to take a screen because otherwise animals will just rip right through your paper towel. We're going to put this on top, and now you've created Microbe Hotel. And they're going to create their own natural biome in the part that's covered by the paper towel. There's enough gas exchange happening, but it'll stay warmer and moister than if you have nothing on this. It'll dry out too much.
And the paper towel's enough.
Paper towel is enough.
And
Yep.
where do you put it?
Yep. So what you want to look for, and you can also add things like FPJ and OHN, which are some of the other inoculants, to the rice, but I have found that it's not really necessary. Some people say they get a better success rate. I found it was exactly the same for me. So there are, if anybody wants instructions, there are instructions online, but you do want to kind of be cautious on who you're listening to because there's also a lot of bad instructions online. If anybody really, really wants to, I have a step-by-step. I'm happy to email it and share it. So
You can hear the crunch.
you can hear it kind of crunchy. The top is always going to be a little bit drier. You don't want big chunks like this, so put this over there for a minute. So this big chunk that just fell in there, you kind of want to loosen it up.
You're not putting your hands on it.
I am not because it's hot.
Okay, but not
It's-
bacterial or whatever?
It's fine. It doesn't, I mean, you know, it depends on how nitpicky you want to be. If I had been playing in compost, I probably would not be touching it. If I had just been transplanting, I probably would not be touching it. If I've been digging in the soil out up here, I'm probably not worried. You know, so just kind of take it into consideration what you've been doing.
There's so much ever-present bacteria.
And fungi.
You're not going to have a sterile.
No.
sample.
Well, see, that's one of the biggest differences about
But-
all of our regenerative farming methods. Indoor wants it to be sterile,
Right.
Yeah.
or now they're changing to
Yeah.
but we want it to have as many different of the right kind of
What
life
she's
forms.
doing is providing a really great opportunity for that forest fungus
Yes,
to
exactly.
inoculate a magnet, a fungus hotel, a Shangri-La of fungus.
Shangri-La. Okay, so our box is about 3/4 full, so that's just perfect.
And it's kind of loosely put, not packed.
It's loosely in. You don't want to pack it down. You want to have lots of air spaces for things to be able to move through. I am in the process with my fiance of trying to get a $25,000 grant to actually do DNA assessment, DNA assays of what we collect and how that propagates out. One of the reasons, and once you pour it, you really do kind of want to cover it so that we're not getting a lot of lactobacillus in the air into it and having that be the dominant thing. So we can put that on, and we can put this on. And then I love that you guys brought a staple hammer. A regular stapler will work fine too if you're just getting your paper towel down. Otherwise, this works great. You can also, I've done all kinds of things. Any way that you can secure this is fine. I've taken old twine from a bale of hay and just kind of wrapped around it just to hold it down.
That's going to be a
Wow.
nice.
Problem?
Impressive, Wendy. Impressive.
We got Rosie the Riveter over
You
here.
say
You still got it.
Oh, there's nice.
Oh, there we go.
Okay.
Uh-oh.
Is it out of state?
Those things are
Oh, there we
always
go.
finicky.
Nope, just had to pull it down. I know they are, right?
Just get slammed all over the place. Here, you know.
You can also use a short
this.
wood screw with a broad head.
I have screws.
Yeah, they can work pretty well.
Problems.
One more. There we go. All right. So I just put in 4 staples, well 6, but it was supposed to be 4. 4 staples on the corner should be fine. We're just making sure that like mice can't get through this. So if and when we get the grant, we'll be able to tell what's going on, because if you get into Korean natural farming, there's a lot of like weird bickering that goes on, and people that it didn't work for, that they're like, it's a crock, it doesn't work, and I'm like, okay, it's not a short-term solution. This is a 3 to 5 year process to sweeten your soils. That's as long, it really takes that much time of doing this, 3 to 5 years, to get it to where it's rocking on its own and you actually start seeing really significant differences. People do it for a season and they're like, nah, it didn't work for me, it's totally bunk. You know, like, you didn't do it long enough, and who did you learn from and what kind of techniques did you use? Because I will tell you, like I said, really easy to fail with this. Once you start getting successful, really easy to succeed, and you have no idea what changed other than you got the rhythm and you just felt it. This goes out into the woods for 5 to 10 days, and it just kind of depends. People are like, how do you know? If it's July and it's 80 degrees, when do you pick it up? I'm like, okay, at the beginning, so what I recommended to Sarah is that they build at least 6 of these. We've got 4 done so far. And what she's going to do is she's going to place the rest of these out. And you basically will get to a day where you're like, all I'm doing is cooking rice and putting it into boxes, because I have a lot of boxes and we only get about 1 box worth of rice per cook. These are all going to go ideally in and around the same place at the beginning. So your first time, 6 boxes all around the same area.
What kind of area? Pine or fir or oak?
So to start with, you want...
Are we going to go,
Yeah, we're going to go find one on the way out.
Yeah.
To start with, you want to look for what Master Cho called sweet trees, which are basically deciduous trees, like oaks, white oak or black oak, not live oak, not tan oak, or maples, aspen, beech, things that lose their leaves, but they don't add a lot of acidity to the ground. Once you start getting successful, you want to go for diversity. 1 under the fir, 1 under the live oak, 1 under the tan oak, 1 under the madrone, 2 or 3 under the maples and white oaks and black oaks. Ideally more sweet than not, because they have a deeper connection with a higher diversity of microbial life than trees like our tan oaks and our firs and our madrones do. But you do want everything in there. You're also going to do this at least 3 times a year, spring, summer, and fall. If you're in a place that has temperate winters, you can do it in the winter. Pro tip, something that I didn't find out for a really long time, if your night temp drops below 40 degrees Fahrenheit, you will not get a successful collection no matter how warm it is in the day. So that's why winter collections are extremely difficult. Most of the time it's too cold, even one day during the time it's out there. Eventually you'll get to the point, like, oh, this is why we're having so many boxes. This one will get collected on day 5 and checked. Once you take the top off, you can't put it back. It's done. It's either chicken food compost or it's good to make into IMO 2. This one will be collected on day 6. This one's collected on day 7. This one's collected on day 8. Unless day 6 is perfect, and then you take them all. So once you know kind of, you'll start doing this, you do this a few times, you'll start just kind of intuitively knowing, I need to go collect my box. It's time.
Muscle test.
You can kinesiology test. Do you want to come in today? I would actually highly recommend doing that. You're going to ask your box, is it time to come in? Do I need to leave you for another day?
Is this a good idea to
Gotta put
label?
it in the right spot
sure.
first. Is this the right place?
There you go.
I set a reminder in my
Every
phone.
step of the way. So you just get in tune with...
We learned to label everything, which is great, but especially when you turn this into IMO 2. IMO 2 is just going to be this weighed with equal weight of sugar. Raw sugar is ideal. Brown sugar, like CNH standard brown sugar, works also. White sugar, not so much your friend. So if you can find Demerara, turbinado, even coconut sugar, that's a raw coconut form sugar, works really well if you're like in a tropical area, because people always are like, it's so much sugar use. I'm like, it's really not a lot of sugar use.
What about like a maple syrup or a molasses?
Nothing
or
wet.
An agave syrup?
Nothing wet. No wet, because what happens is when we put this, and ideally when you take this top off, you're going to see fungal growth that's white and fuzzy. We're in California. We never get what they show in pictures if you look at Hawaiian KNF or like in the South or in Asia. Theirs just looks like pure cotton ball. I mean, it's just this fluffy white cloud looking thing. We don't have that here. We will have some color in this. It's okay.
Yeah, that's it. So how do you know when it's bad, when it's going off?
Orange is bad.
Orange
Yellow is bad.
Orange and yellow are bad.
Yellow tends to be slime mold.
And then there's black too.
Black is really bad.
Okay,
So,
I've had all three of those.
Yeah.
It's like-
Yep.
like you say,
I've
it's
never
not
had
easy
the
when you
black.
start.
yeah, I've never had the black, but black is especially bad because those tend to be pathogenic more than
Right.
anything else.
Well, like maybe an aspergillus or something.
Yeah.
Who knows? Yeah.
I don't really know. There's a lot of them that fall into that category, but your likelihood of getting a pathogenic is higher if it's a black mold.
Right, right.
Um,
Even the yellow, and
Yellow,
orange seem to be not
yellow just goes dominant. You will end up with a pile of slime mold, and that kind of sucks because that defeats the purpose of what we're doing. Orange is the same. I don't know what the orange is. It looks like a Cheeto.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like this weird. It's weird
We
looking.
have a lot of that.
If you end up with that though, like if this part looks good, it's white, and maybe there's a few spots of pink and maybe a little dot of yellow here and there, and this is all orange, just take this part and leave an inch between where it turned orange and your good spot. And you can still use that part. You mix it with your brown sugar, so you're going to weigh it. You're going to gently mix it. You're not going to smash it or beat it up. You should still have whole grains of rice. You're going to cover it with a paper towel. You're going to label it with your date. You're going to set it on your shelf. And depending on where you live, you're going to stir it every 2 weeks to a month just to keep it mixed up. If it starts drying out, you're going to sprinkle water on like this with your hand to keep it moist.
Still in the same box.
No, in a jar. You're going to take it out of this because you have to weigh it. So you want to put it in something that has,
Glass jar.
I use glass. You can use other things. Because this is a really highly active microbial population, even in dormancy, I don't recommend plastic. It's not to say you can't do it, and it's not to say
Glass
I
is
have
gonna be
any
better.
proof that it's a bad idea. Part of me, I like to listen a lot to what my gut says, and it's like plastic is bad for this. I have no justification for it other than that's how I feel. So, up to you. You are your own farmer. You are your own gardener. You create your own things when you leave and do what you feel is best for you. So, I won't throw shade on anybody who does that. So then this goes into basically the brown sugar. What that's doing is it's removing all the water. You have no available water content in this anymore. And what happens with microbiology is if it has no water, it goes dormant and it cysts up. And what you've done is you've now said, go to sleep. I'll wake you up again when it's time. This can go for about anywhere from 3 to 5 years on a shelf and be fine to use. Generally, you're probably going to end up using it in a year or 2 or 3, depending on how big your boxes are. I like more collections more often for more diversity, and I would rather do that every year than do some big collections once and use it for the next 3 years for this particular thing. When you're taking this to the next step out of IMO 2, if we have like 4 good collections, I'm going to take literally a handful like this big from each of them. I'm going to add it to water, and then I'm going to inoculate a substrate of carbon and carbohydrate, and what will happen is this will all start to sporulate out and infect the entire pile. The bigger the pile, the more you need, so if you're going to do a 5,000 pound pile, you're going to use 2 big handfuls. If you're just doing, this is a fairly small farm, so we're only going to probably do, we'll probably do around a 200 or 300 pound pile would be what I would bet, and that would give us enough to inoculate everything. And then when you're inoculating your ground with this stuff, you literally are just casting it like you would cover crop seed. You don't have to put it in thick layers. You use a minimal amount, and it's like bonkers. In the next 3 years, you'll have very little pest pressure. You end up with very little weed pressure because you've now created a more fungally dominant, diverse area. Weeds like things that are disturbed. They like things that are bacterially dominant where nothing else grows. This is succession theory.
Do you water it in after you cast it or
No.
anything like that?
Well, you want to yes, 2 things. It has to have contact with soil, so you can't put this on top of mulch. So ideally, you're creating this, and then the really ideal situation is twice a year, fall and spring. Fall after you harvest, before you cover crop or mulch or do anything else to put your beds to sleep, and then spring right before you're planting, before you're mulching again, so that it has contact with soil and some protection from the sun.
Cool.
And where you want to place this, so we're going to walk up and find a place, but ideally what we're looking for is where there's visible mycorrhizae underneath the leaf duff. So we're looking for white strands of mycelium. And again, if you can see those, you imagine that's probably one organism. So ideally, we're going to be collecting that one organism plus its associated terrestrial yeasts, bacteria, and anything else that might be there. And this is, again, why you want to have them in different places, because this should be collecting different fungi than this, which is different than this, which is different than this. Those white ones are generally wood molds. They're digesters. They're the primary things that actually decompose stuff out in nature, not stuff, but lignin and woody material. So that's why when you propagate out, you need to have carbon on there because that's their food source, their long-term food source. Carbohydrate is their short-term food source. Once it goes into the field, you guys use straw mulch, which is rad because that's high carbon. You'll find out that this stuff will start inoculating all of your mulch really quickly, and that all becomes bioavailable plant food that you didn't have to spend a dime for. Well, you had to buy the mulch, but comparatively speaking, you didn't have to spend a dime for. So it's
What's it do with oyster shells?
It's amazing. So oyster shells are interesting because you're actually talking about a mineral substance. Microbes feed on minerals. Microbes make minerals available to plants. Oyster shell breaks down very slowly as far as the grand scheme of things. It'll be gone in a year, and sometimes less than a year. So this is why we have the other substances in KNF. So we have water-soluble calcium. So we have a calcium spray because you will find that once this is getting really going, you're going to need to add more calcium in the middle of the year, and you're not going to lift this up and spread stuff back under there, right? So if you do run out, then there's a whole calcium spray that you can use that gives your plants like this very fast boost.
So if you previously had, big whole oyster shells, it might take a couple generations to break down. If you're using this,
could be fast.
Bioavailable, much more.
It can be
In your
faster.
lifetime.
Again, it kind of also does in your lifetime probably. And honestly, like we had some whole oyster shells, and it's funny you're bringing it up because I don't think they're there anymore. My kids made a little thing, and I'll have to go see. But yeah,
Let's do
Yeah.
it.
It's just one thing we have a lot of here locally for free if you really went and asked for it to the right people.
Oyster
we
shell?
could see.
Humboldt County produces more, 85% of the
We do a
state's
short one.
consumed oysters are from our bay.
If you drive to
From our
the,
bay,
it's
right there.
been a year or two, but I drove out to the South Jetty. That's not the
Yeah.
one that is easy to get to.
The South, yeah,
Certain
South
little
Jetty.
time. South, out, Lolita, blah, blah, blah. And then all the way to the end, there was piles of oyster shell as big as a small house.
So they just allowed to
And
dump
so
them down there.
I was like, oh, let's load some in the car, not
It's
even the
not
truck.
really enough,
But
Yeah, no.
I
Sarah,
was like,
but
yeah, we can go back to
because
resource.
these are
they're not.
such deep and narrow
I was
boxes,
gonna
it
try to
they're
figure out how to
might
take local
be okay.
resources.
Well,
Well, maybe we'll get
We
an
can
idea
try
of what
it.
not to collect.
Yeah, we can try it and see what
IMO,
happens.
break an oyster
I knew I
shell
should have
down
that
to
bigger
have a
bag.
local
Raise, I
calcium
can't.
might be
Yeah.
something we could do
Yeah.
in a
Yeah.
in a spot out here on the farm.
I've gone to the fish cleaning station in Shelter Cove and just like picked up scraps.
Yeah,
The problem is they're so stinky.
There comes right away.
That the bear comes right away.
Is that it?
And so the first time I learned that lesson quick. So the next time I put them in plastic buckets with a lid and freaking buried it like a foot down in the ground. And the bear came and dug it up.
Still found it. Yeah,
Right away.
I believe it.
I thought,
I just always hear, I've been at the shop for 23 years and
Yeah.
everyone comes in and tells me different stories. So I'm like, I get lots of,
yeah.
I've heard lots of bear, fish stories. It's like,
Right.
don't bring fish to the farm. Just
Yeah.
don't do it.
When you guys
You
go
don't
to take
need
these
it.
off,
There's
you'll
other
need
ways to get your
pliers.
Yeah,
to,
yeah.
like,
Yeah.
pull it.
And so to check in, I just peek in.
No checking.
Oh,
No checking.
I don't like
No
that.
checking.
Oh, look at
No
I don't
checking.
Like that.
That was my question.
So okay, I do have a hack that I haven't done because I didn't need it by the time I finally thought of it and got the thing, which is I have an endoscope.
Oh,
And my
I'm not
thought
gonna
was, what I would do is drill a hole that would fit the endoscope and then put a flap over it so I could lift it up and put it in and peek in there and see what it looks like.
that's
Which I think is not a bad idea if you're beginning and you don't really, know for sure. You could be like, oh, optimal time. Like I said, I bought the machine and then I never used it. I also thought it'd be fun to put it in and figure out how to do a time lapse thing so you could watch it.
yeah,
I was like,
know.
oh, cool.
Well, everyone does that with all their mushroom
Yeah.
growing
Right.
things right now.
Right.
So.
All right, so
Cool.
this one, Sarah, we also probably want to mark this one right short on this.
Okay.
Because this was a little bit under halfway full. Because these boxes are built so narrow, though, it might not be as much of a problem as it would if you had a wide box that was really, really, underfilled. So we won't know. And this is also, again, why more than one box. As many boxes as you can have the, materials and time to build. So you can try different things. I like doing a lot of side-by-sides, proving it out. I think this is going to work better, but I don't know for sure.
Yeah.
Well, if I only do the different thing and I don't do my baseline that I know works, I don't really have proof that it worked better this time.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, I have a place on my old farm that brown rice is way better than white rice, but it's only in that one location. And in the other 2 locations I tried it, the white rice was better. So, it's a weird thing where, you don't really, what works on my farm may not work on your farm as well. What works on your farm may not work as well on my farm. Things always have to be kind of catered to the location that you're at.
Yeah.
When you called this IMO 2,
This will be IMO 1. So Indigenous Micro-Organism collection number 1 is the primary collection.
yes.
Number
Cool,
2 is when you put it into brown
Mix it
rice.
with- okay.
Number 3 is carbon and carbohydrate.
Okay.
Number 4 is when you mix it with your actual soil. And number 5 is when you mix it with a nitrogen source. So you can take it every
Later,
step.
okay.
But when we take this to 3, it's going to be about a 5 days to 14 day process.
Okay.
The first time you do it, I feel like it's kind of like one of those like trial by fire situations where it's like, if you're coming into the cannabis industry, guess what? I want you to sit in a chair and trim for a week because you need to experience that. But it's hell.
Yeah.
So the first time people make IMO 3, they're usually out. You have to keep the temperature under 120 degrees. Your sweet spot is 108 to 118. In order to do that, you're turning it like you would compost. If you add too much moisture, you're out there turning like every hour for like 5 days. So it's like, we always laughed because at the beginning of this adventure, my friend Kobe and I were in the same class and we were kind of just on parallel journeys, even though he's in Sacramento. And he would call me and he'd be like, "What you doing?" I'm like, "I'm babysitting the pal. What you doing?" He's like, "I'm babysitting my pal too." And we would talk at like 2 o'clock in the morning. "How's your pal doing?" "I'm turning." "How's yours doing?" "I'm turning also." Because, you're going to get it too wet at some point and you want to save the pile. So you're just spreading it shorter, trying to turn it, trying to keep it low, trying to keep the temp down. Because 108 to 118 is where fungal diversity blooms. You get too hot and you get bacterial. It kills off your fungi, you have a bacterial pile. It's still fine for compost, but is not what we wanted.
Right.
We now have bacteria that we're adding to bacterial soil. We kind of like missed the boat on that. We're adding fungi to bacterial soil. We're trying to create a better balance.
Yeah.
So, so it's kind of fun to,
Imagine this will operate a
do
lot
it.
differently over here than right at the coast.
Yeah, you're gonna have probably a little bit longer of a pile turn.
Yeah.
And this is one of the things I teach in my 5-day classes. We go through the whole thing. Everybody has piles. You have your own pile that you babysit. I also have all these amazing hacks that I figured out, like using barbecue thermometers. And putting 4 of them in. You can get them
I
either
just envisioned that
Wi-Fi.
when you were saying checking the temperature. I just
Yep.
envisioned that.
So I
looks
found
like
one
it.
that I was like, "Oh, dude, this is Wi-Fi enabled." So I can connect my phone, I can put the thermometer thingies in, and I can have it, as long as it's close enough to my Wi-Fi router,
Wow.
I can go and do anything, and when it starts getting up to like 1:15, it'll alert me, and if I'm out and about, I will go home and turn my pile.
There you
I
go.
can go to sleep and wake up and be like, "Oh, I gotta turn the pile," instead of waking up and checking, because originally that's what we all did. Compost thermometer, putting it in 4 different places, and checking the temperature and figuring out whether you needed to turn it or not.
At 2 a.m.
2 a.m., 3 a.m., 4 a.m., 5
I'm about to embark on an adventure.
7 a.m. So, I mean, well, and it'll be a lot easier for you because when we do this, I'll be here to make sure that our, moisture content is correct. And then I'll bring mine, I have one that's actually Bluetooth enabled too. Because that was my other idea, was like, if you're somewhere where you don't have Wi-Fi, set up a tent and get the Bluetooth one and you can sleep by your pile, but at least you can sleep all night instead of waking up maniacally and, And you put so much work into this that by the time you get to this stage, this is a baby. And you're like, "I am not losing this thing. Come hell or high water, we are going to get this to the next stage." And so then if you're going to do that for IMO 3, you also do it for IMO 4. And then if you want to do it for IMO 5, you also do it for IMO 5. So you're doing this for, a significant period of time. You don't have to take it to IMO 5. You should take it to IMO 4, but you don't have to. I often just do IMO 3 because I'm busy and I don't have the time to wait and then do another round. But you also have to take into consideration how much you need. So if you start with a 200-pound IMO 3 pile, when you take it to IMO 4, you have a 400-pound pile. When you take that to IMO 5, you have a 800-pound pile. You're doubling every time. So if you're trying to cover acres, you need to take it out as far as you can so that all of this work will spread as far as it can.
Cool.
Awesome. Thanks, Wendy.
Okay. You want to grab that box there?
Yeah.
You need to bring a cement mixer.
Ooh.
Mix.
Cement mixers work for FPJ. They don't work as well for
Spreading
IMO,
it, right.
but tractors work really well.
Yeah.
You just don't want it tumbling so much,
Yeah, I was
but
just
you want it
thinking, like,
mixed
what's
well.
the automated response to like this needs to be something happen every hour.
Yeah, yeah. So this is not really the greatest location, but you know, because time is short, we're gonna do it.
What tells you?
Here's more.
So you see this white, this white fuzzy kind of mycelium. We really do want it to look more tree-like, more like a spreading branch, and more. This is a little bit chunkier than we would really like, but that's old. Like, so not this. Okay, this is. Oh, actually, that is. Look at their little tiny mushrooms.
Wow.
Teeny itty bitty
They're cool.
ascocarps. So things like this, if I hadn't nailed this down, you can actually, and actually I can, you can actually stick something like this inside. You don't want to put dirt in there, but I can drop that in there and that will probably inoculate that.
I found
Yep,
another
so if you
little.
want to put that right there, and then what we're going to do is we're going to take up this part right here. And, oh yeah, see, this is actually great. This is perfect fungal hyphae. It's big, it's white. Okay, it's kind of spider webby looking in a way. Same with that. See how that? So those are really nice fungal mycelial strands. And so that's the kind of thing
Yep. So kind of like
that
the
we
good
want to
stuff
have
in a
under
compost
it.
pile, huh?
Yeah, but we don't want compost because
Warm.
that's, see exactly, and this, if you pick this up, see how it's aggregating together? It's sticking together. Well, that's a root, but
Oh.
that one's a root. But that right there is fungal hyphae that's creating a soil aggregate that's basically giving this thing structure. Now, once you get this into garden beds, it'll do this to your garden soil also. It helps create this structure. So you can set those like right on top.
Ooh.
This one, we're actually gonna, I like this piece a lot. I'm gonna manage, no, I'm not gonna put it in that one. I'm gonna put it in this one. So you can put a few fungal hyphae strands right in there. You can set that on top. And then basically, you just kind of wanna put a little bit more soil and things on there like that. And that one's done.
Wow.
So
Okay.
then this one, we're gonna go right up here.
Sits on the edge.
Yep.
I was going to say, you don't have to seal up the sides or anything?
Nope,
you just
that's
leave
it. It's done for 5 to 7 days, basically.
Lots of air.
So again, there's another spot right here. This white webbing. Okay, that's exactly what you're looking for. And then you want to start looking for that all over the place with different diversity, different areas, different types of trees. I always look for downed wood. Wood is, you know, what these things feed on, so that's the decomposers we're looking for. You want to settle your box into it, make sure it has good contact. Yeah, there's good stuff over here. And this mycelia over here looks totally different than that over there. So these probably will end up with different types of microbial communities in them.
You got poison oak right in your right
there it
elbow
is.
there.
Hi, buddy.
Whoops.
Hi, honey.
Yeah, not the best.
I'll be fine. We'll be fine. We'll peck me when I get home. We'll be good to go.
All right.
Thank goodness
Cool.
for technique.
Done.
Okay, and then you just have to remember where you left your boxes.
Yep.
Right.